Welcome back to Small Caps, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kerry Stevenson. Today, I'm speaking with André Douchane. He is the CEO of BBX Minerals. ASX code is, nice and easy, BBX. They are a precious metals exploration company working out of Brazil. Very interesting jurisdiction. And welcome to Small Caps, André. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Now, this is the first time that you've spoken to our community here at Small Caps. So before we get into the projects themselves, give us an overview of who are BBX Minerals. What are you doing?
BBX Minerals is an exploration development and actually has become a technology company to boot. We are in Brazil. We're looking through a very large tenement, and we've begun to assay some drill holes and have discovered we have quite a bit of platinum group metals.
Platinum group metals, explain, because it's when quite often when people hear the word precious metals, they think of gold and silver. But you're talking about precious metals in a wider sense. Can you just explain that a little bit to us?
Yes, we are. We found that we have platinum, palladium, iridium, and rhodium, and possibly ruthenium. We also have gold. So we end up with gold plus 4 or 5 what they call platinum group metals.
Does that make it a little bit more challenging in terms of how you go about down the track, I guess, or exploration, figuring out what it is that you've got when you have not just a gold project, but as you say, all these other metals in the mix?
We've actually solved part of the technology was the fact that this particular deposit was difficult to assay. And obviously, when you try a straight lead fire assay, you get nothing, which you would always get nothing if you had straight platinum group metals. And if you go ahead and do a different kind of fire assay called a nickel sulfide fire assay, which is a typical assay that you would use for platinum group metals, platinum, palladium, iridium, that would not work for gold. So we had to develop a method that would work very well for the full suite of metals. We eventually came upon a process that allowed us to get accurate gold and the platinum group metals also. And it finally came out of a really high temperature nickel smelt that in excess of 1500 degrees. And the problem with that early on was finding a furnace, a commercial furnace, that would actually bring the temperature of the crucibles up to that temperature and above. So we could actually melt the nickel and melt the rock and allow the nickel to collect all the metals that were in there. We finally found some furnaces to do that. Now, your typical assay furnace maybe will go to 1250 degrees, which isn't sufficient. Wow. You need to get above the melting point of nickel, which is around 1450 degrees. I'm talking Celsius, so it's very, very hot.
Very hot.
So once we gathered all the metals in the nickel button, then we had to figure out how to process it. And that took quite a while too, because getting the nickel away from those metals is easy. It's just hydrochloric acid, absorption, it goes away. You end up in a filter paper with a small amount of little black things that are metal. But then the next thing is how do you tell what's in there? And that's where we came into something that was fairly proprietary. And oddly enough, one of the things that broke that code was an old, I guess, a paper from the US Bureau of Mines that talked about fire assaying of platinum group metals. And so that was part of it. So we actually get it into a solution, and then it goes through a regular lead fire assay. It can be read from there. So it's new technology in the way it was set up. There's a bit of proprietary technology in how those metals are treated from the smelt to the fire assay, but everything on beginning to end is old technology.
Old technology meeting with new technology, but where are you at with that now? Have you proved it up, or is it?
Oh yes, we have. It took us quite a bit of time to prove it up. we're now assaying drill holes.
Great. Okay. Well, let's talk about those assays and the drill holes, and let's start with I think which project would you look? Because we've got two here. We've got the Emma Gold project. Both of these, ladies and gentlemen, are in Brazil. Emma's got 2 exploration licenses, and Três Estados, love that name, Três Estados has 1. Which one do you want to start with?
I'll talk about Emma quickly.
Yep.
We're not going to get to Emma until later in the project. We've started our assaying with Três Estados. There's about 44 drill holes, both from a drill program in 2017 and our more recent drill program in 2021. We're going to go through those 44 holes first for lots of reasons. The main reason is we've got some really old holes from 17 to go through, but there's about 18 or 19 holes that are sort of gathered in an area where we think once we assay it, we can begin to develop a JORC resource, which is very important.
You've had this project for a little while. Let's talk a little bit more about why you're focusing on Três Estados as a project. You say you've put 44 drill holes in. Now you're going to put it through this proprietary process. Tell us what's attracting you to this. How deep did you drill? What are you finding that's going to interest people in the market out there?
Três Estados is one that really caused BBX a lot of problems early on. In that, I can't remember which hole it was they were drilling, but they found some metal in there that the geologists would swear was native gold. And the drillers were Canadian, and they began to talk about it, and it raised quite a stir. So BBX felt they had to announce it. And of course, I've seen that metal, and I'd swear it's gold. Anyway, when you go to fire assay, you get nothing.
Oh wow!
And so we did that when we found some just during 2021, and we got nothing. But we were able to take that metal out of there and send it off to a special lab, and actually IPT did some work on it, where we found out it was a really funny little copper alloy. And yes, it had gold. Yes, it had silver. Yes, it had platinum group metals. And one platinum group metal in particular that really causes a lot of trouble when you're trying to assay gold, and that's osmium.
Why
osmium will grab apparently it grabs the gold and flies away with it. It melts at a fairly low temperature and takes the gold with it. Okay,
so getting back to where you're going with this, so you're now much more confident that you can work out what it is you've got using this assay process, if you like.
Yeah, the nickel smelt method. So we began assaying drill holes. Yep. The first one we assayed was at one end of the property, which was a TED 015. And as far as I'm concerned, that's a spectacular drill hole. It had multiple intervals of really decent grade platinum group metals. And the price in those platinum group metals, a lot of it was driven by the iridium and the rhodium. There's high platinum in some of them, and there's actually 001 had some high platinum and high palladium in it. But then we did 001, which was completely on the other side of the project. And again, I go back to the fact that we chose Três Estados because we had a cluster of holes that we felt we could develop a JORC resource on. So that's why we started where we started. We also wanted to check the two sides. So the key to me is continuity. We have to have continuity, and the other thing is size. We want size. Now, is this entire huge deposit, or excuse me, not a deposit? It's an anomaly. Is huge anomaly going to be all open pit mine? Absolutely not.
Right.
But we think there's good potential to see, tens, 20s, 30s of millions of tons of stuff throughout this whole thing.
So it's a big project, which needs
it's very big. It's also close to the surface, so it's amenable to open pit mining.
Andre, by way of background, you're a mining engineer and you've worked all over the world. So what I'd like to find out from you is what's attracted you to this project? You've worked all over the world, many, many years. And so I just want to find out, what is it about this project that you say, you know what, there's something here, excuse me, which could be very interesting for investors going forward?
I looked at it. I was sort of asked to take a look at it, and I did. And I went down. First of all, I like South America. I like Brazil. I think Brazil is a very good place to work. I think some people have been burned down there for various reasons. You can get burned in the United States if you don't know the rules. You can get burned in Australia if you don't know the rules. So the thing about it is, you really need to understand the mining laws of the country. You have to understand how the government works, and it's a very good government. And I find the people are just great down there. I really like the people. I like the climate's gorgeous. The mining laws, the whole system seems fairly easy for me to work in. So that's number one. Number two was the project. And when I went down there and I worked with those guys, I stayed down there for, I don't remember, it was 3 or 4 days. And we actually went through one of their processes that does indeed collect metal. And I actually had a little teeny gold bead around here somewhere that I brought, a gold colored bead that I brought back from one of the processes we did. And they do have some, you have to go back and look at, it's called the MBH. It's a big chunk of outcrop that they grab to do work on. It comes out of Emma, and Emma's probably the one that's going to have the better gold. I'm saying probably, I don't know for sure, but when we use that sample, we seem to get a lot of gold out of it. So at that point in time, I realized, look, there's something here, and it's very large, and I want to be involved in it.
Well, tell me about the team that's down there at the moment and the people that are working with this, because you've got a specific way, as you say, this is not just a gold project. It's not as simple, but you're actually going to manage to extract the metal. But who's helping you down there? Because I know that you've mentioned to me in the past that you've got a great team.
We have a great team. We have a team that's very, very well balanced between corporate functions and technical. We have 2 very seasoned geologists down there. Antonio he's been around a long time. He worked in Australia. He's worked mainly in Brazil. He knows the country. He's a very good technical geologist, and he acts as our QP. Mike Schmillian, who's our chairman, who is retiring, but he's going to stay on as a consultant, and I'm glad about that, because he and I work very well together, and I get to keep my sounding board. He's a very senior geologist. He's a good corporate guy, a very good executive, and he's worked in the mining industry for years too. We managed to have Edmar Medeiros come on. He's a chemical engineer. He's really the guy that moved us along. He worked for Anglo for a long time. He's the father of quite a few processes, liquid extraction processes to get niobium out of the potash, to get rare earths out. The rare earths and niobium are not a lot different than the platinum group metals. So he's really the key that put together a team to begin to develop that assay method. They're also working on an extraction method, but the key here for us really was we needed an assay method. You need an assay method to tell what's in the drill holes. We need an assay method to be able to come up with a JORC resource. We need an assay method to be able to judge the efficiency of any kind of a process. We need to know what's going in. We need to know what's coming out. And that gives us our recovery. That tells us what's in there. And as we go from step to step, we need to know what step really takes what metal out. And I suspect in the end of the day, we're going to end up at the end of it with a bit of a different process. to get different PGMs. They're actually a funny little metal, and they have a lot of excellent processes and purposes, all the way from hydrogen cells to automotive industry and catalytic converters.
Yeah, let me stop you for a second there, because I know you've got a deep knowledge of this area, and a lot of people out there will be going, platinum group metals, what is that? Can we spend just a couple of minutes for you to explain PGMs a little bit more to my audience and understand why they're important today?
I can. And they have a long history. Platinum group metals, but I won't bore you with it. I'll tell you where we're at with them at this point in time. Platinum group metals, as I said, are funny metals. They have the ability to hold tremendous amounts of hydrogen. They have the ability to alter chemicals. They have the ability to take in things like radiation and give it up, and on a very metered basis. They have the ability to alter glass chemicals. So what are they used for? I mean, platinum is probably the only one of the metals that's considered an investment metal. Yeah. But most of the platinum and palladium, which are 6 million ounce per year, well, let's take 2021. They around 6 million ounces of platinum and 6 million ounces of palladium. That was the supply from mining.
Yep.
The platinum demand was pretty close to that. Would have been higher, but since COVID, the jewelry and the investment side of that just dropped off. But the automotive side has not, and the chemical side has not. All the industrial uses have not. Palladium, on the other hand, its demand was 10 million ounces, only 6. The rest in between was sort of made up through stocks in 2021, and it was also made up from scrap that gets taken out of old catalytic converters. Its main use is also automotive. It's not really an investment metal. People try. You can buy a PAMP bar from PAMP that's 1 ounce of palladium. Canada actually makes a Canadian coin, a palladium coin, but its main use is also medical. Every cell phone's got something called a multi-layer capacitor. You need palladium to make one of those, so it's all part of that. We talk about rhodium. Rhodium is another interesting metal that's used only in the automotive business, not only in the automotive business, but also in electrochemicals and chemicals. And the same with ruthenium. Ruthenium is not used in the automotive industry, but it's used in the chemical industry, the electrochemical industry, and just electrical. So what's this thing about the automotive industry? Well, every car, and even lawnmowers now, I've got a motorcycle that's got a catalytic converter on it. And you cannot build a catalytic converter without one of either platinum or palladium. And it's impossible to build one without rhodium. Platinum or palladium, they both do the same thing. Platinum is a little less sensitive to sulfur, so it can be used for a very clean diesel. Palladium would fail there. Palladium works better in cold climates. It sort of lights out earlier. And what they do is they take the carbon monoxides and that sort of stuff out.
Right.
Of your engine stream. But there's one other thing in there that comes out called nitrous oxides, or they refer to them as NOxes. Yeah. You have to have some rhodium to get rid of the nitrous oxides, to get those broken down. So that's the components of the catalytic converter. And the palladium market took off crazily because it all surrounded this business with Volkswagen when they got caught thrifting catalytic converters too much, and they had to replace them. They had to get new ones. So all of a sudden that put a very big draw on the palladium market because they were using palladium. So why don't they change? Well, they can, but it takes years. You can't just say, okay, I'm gonna, excuse me a minute, I'm gonna put palladium in place of platinum, because what you've done has been approved by some EPA somewhere. And you really have to go through a lot of testing to get your mix right. So once you have an engine that's approved with a certain catalytic converter, you can't just monkey with it.
Okay.
So if you want it, so I'll guarantee you, there's automotive companies out there right now doing their best to change from palladium to platinum, because they can do it, but it's going to take several years. And I think we saw a spike in the palladium market, which wasn't real, and it didn't last very long. And that happened when Russia invaded their neighbor, and we began to see sanctions against them. Of those 6 million ounces of palladium mined and produced a year, approximately half of them come out of Norilsk in Russia.
Oh, wow.
Everybody assumed that was going to stop. Well, it hasn't, because that's the other funny thing about these PGM markets. You see gold and silver, typically they're handled on the metal exchanges, and it's an open outcry market where people theoretically bid back and forth. And most of the buyers and most of the sellers are there. So what you get for a price is probably pretty good. Not so with the palladium and platinum markets, the PGM markets. There's maybe 35% there in that open outcry market. The rest of them, because they need the supply, have already contracted for it from some manufacturer, some refiner, and they've contracted for it because they need it. They cannot exist without it. So they'll approach Norilsk. I'll guarantee you, the German cars are still getting their metal from Norilsk or through a refinery. And what they'll typically take is not what you see as shiny bar. They'll take something called sponge, and they sell sponge. A bar will be sold by bar weight. Sponge can be sold by 99.12 grams, and you pay for the 0.12 grams, because the entire sponge is used, because it's sort of a solution that's put on the catalytic converter.
Well, I love that, because I'm beginning to understand a little bit more about PGMs, and I hope our audience will as well. And you clearly have a very good grasp on the market. Let's go back to BBX Minerals, if we could, and give me a look, or give us a look, I should say, at where you're going. Where's the value? What's the roadmap for the next 2 years look like for BBX?
Well, the value is right now is in the PGMs. There's no doubt about that. And the fact that it appears to be coming in a form that's open pit mineable. We know we can extract it. Obviously, we get assays. We know there's some liquid stuff we can do. So here's where we're going. It's assay the holes, develop a JORC resource. At the same time we're assaying these holes, we are further working on our production method, which I said is probably going to be a liquid extraction. So assaying the holes, working on the JORC, and working on the production method, sort of going along the same path. But the idea here, things happen, and we've been caught before. So let me caveat this whole thing. If we keep going with the holes, which I have no reason to doubt we ever would, we should be seeing some sort of a JORC resource, if it's there, by late in the year. And then hopefully sometime in the second quarter of next year, we'll have a process nailed down enough to where we can actually put together a PEA. And once we have that PEA, then we'll keep going. But in the interim, there's other things we have to do, and that is we got a lot of infill drilling to do once we get this main thing. We just have a lot of that, and we have a lot of work to do with the government. Once we're firm, we've got to do the same thing everybody else. They have the same rules. we've got to do an environmental study. We've got to do an environmental statement, impact statement. We've got it, and that's a minimum of 3-year process. So at some point in there, we'll begin that.
Okay, so are you going to be looking at Emma at all, or is this all around Três Estados and that's the focus at the moment? Because that's a big, big, big project.
No, Emma, we'll move on to Emma as soon as we're done with these 44 holes.
Okay, great.
In Três Estados. And I think the other thing that you need to know is that we're in Apuí, which is in Amazonia, and yes, it's the Amazon, but it's not jungle. It's a farming and ranching community that's been there for quite a while. It's way south of the Amazon. It's probably 400 kilometers south of Manaus. And Manaus sits right on the Amazon River.
Yeah.
So it's just in that region. The main Brazilian highway goes right through town. It has an airport. There's 1 million people around. There's plenty of people who work, and it also has access to a river port. That's a very big river port. So to move things in and out of there is not a problem.
So I guess what you're saying is, ladies and gentlemen, it might be Brazil, but it's not in the middle of nowhere. We're actually in an area where it's not difficult to get people and the project going.
No, we have good logistics here.
All right, we're running out of time, Andre. In fact, we've gone over to a little bit over time because I love that understanding of PGM market. Tell us 3 reasons why you think our community should be sitting up and taking notice of BBX Minerals, like right now as you and I are talking today.
People, technology, and the projects. And I think they have the people and technology to develop the projects, and we've had a hell of a project.
A hell of a project that's just getting started and lots of interesting news to follow. Keep us up to date with how you're going. I really appreciate you coming on to chat with us at Small Caps today. We'll see you very soon. Thanks, Andre.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.